Hello everyone, and welcome to the Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Naruto become a Negima king. But before we start, want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Nadoka, Negi cries out as he rushes forward to save his two students, who stared transfixed at the massive dragon looming in front of them. I shouldn't have agreed to take them with me to such a dangerous place. If something happened to them, it'll all be my fault. He thought to himself as he desperately tried to reach the two girls in time. The young teacher then realized that by the time he reached them it would probably be too late, and even if he did reach them in time, what could he possibly do against a dragon of this size? But before either the dragon or Negi could reach Nadoka and an orange and black streak swoops in and snatches up the library pair before disappearing into the shadows. What in the world was that? The ermine familiar Chamo asks from his perch on Negi's shoulder. Negi had no answer for that and instead focused on looking around for his students. The dragon itself roars angrily and starts wildly flapping its wings, being upset that its prey was taken away. Say, you overgrown lizard. Your ugly ass roar is the last thing I need to hear waking up after Kami knows how long. A deep voice growls grumpily. Negi pinpoints the source of the unfamiliar voice and sees an amazing sight. Padding out of the shadows is what seems to be a horse-sized, nine-tailed orange fox with blood-red, slitted eyes and black, tattoo-like markings all over its body. On its back, it carried the unconscious forms of Nadoka and But before Negi could say anything, the nine-tailed fox leaps over to him and spoke. Oi Gaki. These two vixens yours? The fox asks irritably. Negi could only nod dumbly in confirmation. The fox hen deposits the two girls gently in front of the child teacher and, in an unexpectedly human-like gesture, swats Negi upside the head with one of its paws. What the hell are you thinking bringing them to a place like this, you idiot? You looking to get them killed or something? The fox admonished harshly. But Negi starts to say before the fox cuts him off. Skip it. I don't wanna hear any of your damned excuses. You've got some decent power, but you're nowhere ready to face something like this. And just because you're strong doesn't give you the right to involve innocents like these two. Tired at seemingly being ignored, the dragon once again makes its presence known by roaring at the three humans and the tattooed fox, who simply looks back with a growl on its vulpine lips. Didn't I just tell you to shut the hell up, or are you hard of hearing? Listen here, leather bags. I just woke up and I'm feeling very cranky, so if you're just gonna stand there making all that ruckus, I suggest you beat it. The fox snarls, turning to face its larger opponent. Aniki, we need to get the girls away cause something's about to happen. Chamo whined. Negi wisely follows his familiar's advice. ND takes his two students away to safer grounds. And not a moment too soon, as the dragon responded by breathing out a stream of red-hot flames which entirely engulfs the mysterious fox. But much to Negi's, Chamo's and the dragon's surprise, a severely unimpressed-looking fox emerges from the inferno virtually unscathed. What is that supposed to scare me? The fuzzy eyebrow duos, flames of youth, are way scarier. The fox said before suddenly remembering something with a visible shudder. Oh wait. Nothing can be scarier than their flames of youth, especially when you're on the receiving end. But I digress. Both the dragon and Negi steps back in alarm as the fox's face splits into an impossibly large and toothy vulpine grin. Let me show you the true meaning of the word fear. The fox said as he started releasing massive amounts of killer intent, which can even be felt from as far as the main campus by the headmaster, the more powerful members of the Mahora faculty, and even certain members of the student populace like Evangeline A.K. McDowell. Such a deliciously powerful killing intent. The undead queen said to herself. I wonder if his blood tastes just as good. Meanwhile, it was even worse for Negi, Chamo and the dragon, because they were at ground zero. It was as if there was a great weight pressing down on them and making it difficult for them to even stand, much less move around on their own. But fortunately for you and Nadoka, they were unconscious and blissfully unaware of what was happening around them. Now do you realize the difference in our abilities, dragon? The fox asks, which gets a whimper in response. Good if you do. Now scram. As soon as the fox stops releasing his killing intent, the dragon quickly flies off and Negi could swear that it was whining like a whipped dog. And much to the young wizard's discomfort, the fox then turns its attention back to him. Now then, where were we? Negi takes an involuntary step back as the fox moves towards him and his unconscious students. Reacting quickly, he puts himself between the fox and the girls while brandishing his staff defensively even though he knew it was probably a futile effort. This causes the fox to raise a non-existent eyebrow. What's this? You dare raise your weapon against me even though you know you're clearly outmatched. The fox commented, stay away, I'll have you know that my Aniki is a powerful Magistar Magi. Chamo sniped. The fox squints at Chamo causing the little ermine to scuttle deeper in Negi's clothes. Ho, is that right? I say you're bluffing. What can a kid and a talking rat do against me? I don't know but I won't let you hurt my students. Negi answers as he starts to gather magical energy around himself in preparation for a battle. What kind of teacher? No. What kind of man would I be if I can't even protect them? I gave my solemn word and I won't break my promise even if it kills me. At hearing Negi's answer, the fox stares at him for a few moments before it throws back its head and unexpectedly starts to laugh. Ha 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 ha. Oh, this is rich. After saying those words for what seems like 1,000 times in my life, I never thought that it'd sound so damned funny hearing it from someone else. I must have sounded like a broken record back then. It's not funny. If you've said those words too, then you must know that a man's word is very important. Negi said hotly, feeling a little peeved that the fox was laughing at him. The fox manages to settle down and gives Negi a serious look. You're right, of course. My bad, my bad. A man's word really is important, and had you abandoned these vixens, I would have killed you where you stood. But I like you, kid, and you've got guts for standing up against me. What's your name? Negi Springfield. And this is my familiar Chamo-kun. The young Magistar answered apprehensively, though he still didn't shift from his defensive stance. Before the fox could answer, Yu and Nodoka starts to stir and awaken. Uh-oh. Looks like the little vixens are waking up. I may be too much for them in this form, so smoke suddenly covers the fox's form with a small pop. After a few moments, the smoke clears and reveals a tall man wearing a long-sleeved, black-orange tracksuit, red short-sleeved trench coat with black flames on the bottom and a black-red, diamond-shaped hat, basically a black and red version of the Hokage's hat, which had the kanji for fire in front and black drapes around which obscured his features. The man removes his hat and reveals feral but good-looking and youthful features with cerulean blue eyes, shaggy blonde hair and whisker-like marks on both cheeks. He also wore a black headband with a metal plate which had a strange-looking symbol engraved on its surface. But the most startling things about the man was the black fox-like ears on top of his head and the 9 orange tails with black tips waving in the air behind him. It was at this point that Yu and E's unusual-looking stranger in front of them. Negi-sensei. Who is this man? Nodoka asks somewhat fearfully, though she and Yu couldn't help but admire him for his exceptionally good looks. Her face reddens even more when the stranger smiles widely at them. My apologies for startling you ladies, and allow me to introduce myself. The man said before Negi could answer, and bows with a flourish. I am the High Sennin and the Rokudaime Hokage of Konohagakure no Sato, Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto, at your service. Flashback. Ha 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 ha. You will never defeat me. Even without the Hachibi and the Kyubi. I still have the powers of the other 7-tailed beasts. A demonic-looking beast which had a single, massive Rinnegan eye with 7 tomos roared at a man wearing red robes with black flame. And the Hokage's hat who stood in front of it. And their powers along with the 4 kinds of Sharingan in my possession were enough to revive the Jubi which I have now assimilated. Your chances of victory are now 0. The man wearing the Hokage's hat frowns at the monster. I've always been ridiculously lucky, so odds don't really apply to me anymore. Besides, you should know by now how determined I can be when I set my mind to something, and currently, my mind is set on kicking your ass straight to hell. The man said with a cheeky smile. Biwahahaha. I am an immortal, so I can never die. Nothing you do will be able to kill me. The demon said while laughing maniacally. The Hokage's cheeky smile grew wider. Who said anything about killing you? I'm planning on sending you to a special Kind of hell reserved for assholes like you. Naruto-kun. Don't do it. Don't use that jutsu. A voice calls out desperately. The Hokage, who was revealed to be one Namikaze Uzumaki. Naruto looks back sadly at the woman he loved, Hyuga Hinata, who was currently the only one of his friends who was still standing in the battlefield. The alliance of the 5 great shinobi nations were successful in thwarting the plans of Akatsuki. The 4th Great Shinobi War had been thankfully brief and relatively bloodless, as the criminal organization's strength had already been compromised even with the Adadio N of Kabuto and Team Taka, due to the fact that most of its members had already been killed and their former ally Omegakure had joined forces with the enemy under its new Omekage and former Akatsuki member Konan. After a successful campaign, the Rokudaime Hokage himself had led a hand-picked team which consisted mostly of himself, members of the former Rookie 9, Karen, who was a former member of Team Taka, Kurabe of Kumo, and Sabaku no Gaara of Suna into the deepest depths of Akatsuki's base to confront and stop the immortal Uchiha Madara once and for all. But once they arrived there, they had discovered the corpse of Uchiha Sasuke minus his eyes, along with the remaining members of Team Taka, Suigetsu and Jugo. Things went south from there when Uchiha Madara, who now possessed the Jubi's body, suddenly attacked. The team tried fighting back but were decimated. And though none of them were killed by the assault, most were now unable to fight. Which is the situation we currently find them in. Sorry Hinata-chan, I have to do this cause if I don't, Madara will rampage throughout the elemental nations and kill a lot of innocent people. Naruto said to his fiancée. It's my responsibility as a leader and as a Jinchuriki. But what about your promise and responsibility to me? Hinata cried. You promised that we'd be happy together. You said. Hinata suddenly slumps forward unconscious due to a nerve strike delivered by Kurabe, who looked a little banged up from the assault. Thanks Octo-Asan, Naruto said to the Hachibi Jinchuriki, who simply nods in acknowledgement. The blonde then moves forward and caresses Hinata's face. For what it's worth, I was happy with you, Hinata-chan. Happier than I ever thought I could possibly be in my life. This is the only time that I have to break a promise, even though it's killing me to do it, so I hope you'll forgive me eventually. But know that I will always love you and nothing will ever change that. Naruto said, kissing her lips gently. A tear falls from the heiress's eye as he does this. You are certain that you want to use that jutsu? Another voice spoke, making Naruto smile. The Godaime Kazekage, Sabaku no Gaara steps out from behind Kurabe with his arms folded across his chest and looking unruffled as always despite his rather disheveled appearance. What makes you think that neither I or Kurabe are just as capable or qualified of performing it? That's cause you don't have Shukaku inside you anymore, and Octo-Asan here has used up most of his chakra against Madara. Besides, it's a sage technique and I'm the only one here who can perform it. Naruto pointed out. Gaara closes his eyes and sighs in resignation. Kurabe's sunglasses and stony expression hid his dismay at how everything turned out. Kit, I personal, why have no qualms about using this jutsu if it means taking out the accursed Uchiha blood with me? But what about you? You still have much to live for. Kyuubi rumbled from within Naruto. I have no choice, Kyuubi. We're the only ones who can do this and neither of us can do it without the other. Naruto answered mentally. Kid, you do know that once you cast that jutsu, there's no turning back, right? Kurabe spoke seriously, mirroring Kyuubi's sentiments. Yeah, Naruto answered solemnly, looking at the older man. And when I'm done, you and the Hachibi will be the only ones left in this world to protect it for a long, long time. Kurabe nods in understanding and smiles widely as he holds out a fist. It's been a blast, kid. I'll hold down the fort for as long as it takes. The true duty and responsibilities of the tailed beasts now falls on your shoulder, brother. Hachibi, Kyuubi said to the Hachibi through their telepathic link. I won't fail you, brother Kyuubi. Be at peace, Hachibi answered formally. With an equally massive grin, Naruto knocks fists with Kurabe before turning to a morose Gaara. Tamari will be very unhappy, but she will understand the necessity. Gaara intoned, referring to his sister who was also engaged to Naruto in a political engagement before holding out a hand. I will not say goodbye. Just till we meet again. Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto Greatif. Yuli took the hand of his closest friend and shook it. Till we meet again, Sabaku no Gara. Please apologize to Tsunade Bachan, Iruka-sensei and Kakashi-sensei for me, will ya? He then turns to Or.ds the unconscious forms of his other friends. The energetic and eternally youthful Rock Lee. Konoha's own weapons mistress and his part-time Kenjutsu instructor, Higurashi Tenten. The Hyuga prodigy and his Anbu captain, Hyuga Neji. The T&I department's resident bombshell, Yamanaka Ino. Another good friend and his eating buddy, Akamichi Choji. His lazy tactical genius and go-partner, Nara Shikamaru. The silent but always efficient captain of the Hunter Corps, Aburame Shino. The feral but loyal Inuzuka Kiba and his partner Akamaru. The former Root member turned ally and secret police head Sai. And finally, the former Taka scanner turned good friend, Karen. Naruto then looks at the two women who meant so much to him. I'm sorry I wasn't able to save Sasuke Sakura-chan. Live well, Naruto said quietly to his pink-haired teammate and medic before looking at the unconscious Hinata one last time. I've told you this before and I'll say it again, Hinata. I'll always love you and that will never change. It's time, Kit, Kyuubi said. Kyuubi, before we do this, there's something I need to say to you. You've been a source of both suffering and salvation in my life. But I am honored to have walked down this path with you. You have my thanks, Naruto said to the Biju. Don't get sappy on me, kid, and don't thank me yet. After all, we're doing this together, right? Thank me when we're on the other side. Kyuubi grumbled. Naruto then turns his attention back to the Jubi and speaks. Get everyone out of here as quickly as you can, Gara. What's not going to be pretty? And what makes you think I'll let them escape? Madara, Jubi said as it lashes at the unconscious Nins but was stopped by Naruto who held on. Go, Gara. Get out of here already. The Godime Kazekage nods and uses his sand to engulf everyone before teleporting away. Roaring angrily, the monster flings away Naruto, who lands nimbly back on his feet with a mixture of natural energy and Kyuubi's chakra starting to envelope him. Pitiful insect, your sacrifice is meaningless because once I'm done with you, they'll be next. Madara, Jubi roared, I won't let you, Kyuubi. Give me everything you've got now. In response, the nine-tailed fox howls wildly and starts flooding his Jinchuriki with power. Naruto then bloodies his hand with a kunai and goes through a lightning-fast series of hand seals before slamming both hands on the ground. Senpo Fuinjutsu. Sekiryuman Genkei. Sage Art Sealing Technique. Centennial Dragon Crest Limitation Runic. Marking suddenly spreads out from his hands and covers both his and Madara, Jubi's bodies. I can't move. What have you done? Madara, Jubi demands. Naruto grins up savagely at his opponent before answering. What I'm doing is taking us both to hell together, Uchiha Madara. A hot, blinding flash envelopes the area and Naruto knew no more. Flashback end. And the next thing I knew, chomp, I woke up in that cave. Slurp. To that blasted dragon screaming. Its lungs out. Munch. And me in a fox form which I somehow knew how to use. Slurp. And without Kyuubi talking to me. Naruto said, finishing his story as he polishes off a bowl of ramen. Inside the office of the headmaster of Mahora, the other occupants, which consisted of the headmaster himself, his assistant Shizuka and one of Mahora's most powerful faculty members Takamaki, could only look on in amazement and disbelief as they watched the mysterious blonde who called himself Namikaze Uzumaki. Naruto put away his 15th bowl of ramen since he started explaining his origins to them, and he was still going strong. After sensing the killing intent, the headmaster had sent Takamaki along with the campus security team of mages to investigate the incident and found Negi and two of his students together with the blonde man. Negi managed to convince them that the stranger was no threat, and the man even willingly allowed himself to be disarmed before following Takamaki to the headmaster's office. After the senior teacher had dismissed Negi and his students. Upon arriving in the headmaster's office, Naruto's stomach had growled loudly, prompting the headmaster to laugh heartily and order food for their guest. Of course, how was he to know that the blonde had a bottomless stomach when it came to ramen, as evidenced by the tall stack of bowls by his side? An amazing tale, Naruto-san. The headmaster remarked after listening to the blonde's story while stroking his long beard, causing the young Hokage to pause from eating and look up at the old man who somehow reminded him of old Sandaime Jisen. You sound like you don't believe me, Naruto said, chewing slowly. On the contrary, young man, I do believe you. I'm not as close-minded as you may think, and you'll find many things in this school that any normal folks may find fantastic. The headmaster said, like the fact that many here seems to possess some sort of supernatural abilities. Naruto asks, smirking at the expression of the old man. Don't look so surprised, Jisun. You've said it yourself that there are many things in this school that normal folks find fantastic, and one of my abilities is sensing people through their life energy, so of course I'd notice it. That plus the fact that you don't seem to be too concerned about the damned dragon under the school. The dragon was placed there for a very good reason, Naruto-san. And yet you were able to drive it away with sheer killing intent alone, so it's clear that we must re-evaluate our security measures there. The headmaster said, to be fair, putting a dragon there is a good security measure. It's just that it's never met anything like me before, so that's probably why it freaked out like it did. Naruto stated, but then again, I don't really understand how I got here or how I became like this in the first place. Whatever power I have right now is something I can't control too well yet, and it's probably one of that forbidden sealing jutsu's weird side effect. Weird side effect? What do you mean? Takachi spoke up for the first time. It's as I've said, the Sekiryuman Genkei is an ancient forbidden technique which I found at the library in Myobukazen. While searching for a way to defeat Mahora. The problem is that the side effects of casting such a jutsu were never documented because nobody was foolish enough to try. Naruto said, not exactly the smartest move on my part, but I was desperate enough to try anything. Indeed. So what are your intentions now that you've awakened? The headmaster asks, a plan already forming in his mind. Well, first things first, I'd like to know what happened to me and find out if I was actually successful in sealing away Mahora and the Jubi. Naruto said seriously, forbidden techniques like the one I use on him tend to be quite potent given the price you pay for it, but I'd like to make sure. Call me paranoid, but that's just the way I was trained. Understandable given how much of a threat he seems to be. The headmaster said with a nod. But do you even know where to begin? Even though we're not entirely sure for how long you've slept, I imagine that the landscape now looks vastly different from what you're used to. For all we know, this might not even be the elemental countries anymore. Good point. Naruto said thoughtfully. I'm going to need access to a lot of old books and records to find out exactly what I'm looking for. A place to stay for a while and probably a way to earn some money for supplies and provisions. The Jinchuriki then warily looks at the headmaster, who had a small knowing smile before sighing. You don't happen to know where I can find all those, do you? As a matter of fact, Naruto-san, I may have just the thing for you. Would you be interested in hearing me out? It will be mutually beneficial for the both of us. The headmaster said. After studying the headmaster, Naruto shrugs his shoulders dismissively and decides to take a chance with the strange old man. It wouldn't be the first time he took risks anyways, and he had a feeling that this new world will be quite an experience for him. It has been well over a month since Negi revisited the depths of Library Island and had encountered the mysterious individual named Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto. Many things had happened to the young mage since then, like the start of his training under Evangeline, the invasion of Willem and the Slime Sisters, as well as the return of Inagami Kotaro. Yet all throughout his ordeal, he couldn't help but wonder what had become of Naruto. Currently, he along with Chamo and one of his students Sakurazaki Setsuna had received summons from the headmaster for an emergency meeting in the middle of the World Tree Plaza. Upon their arrival, he could see that the headmaster was already there, together a number of individuals which included Takamaiki, Kotaro, some nuns, some young girls whom he assumed were students, and surprisingly, a couple of teachers whom he was acquaintances with in the high school faculty room. Ah, Negi-kun, so good of you to join us. The headmaster greets. Headmaster, who are all these people? Negi asks curiously. Ah yes, I suppose I've yet to introduce them, Negi-kun. All these people in front of you are just some of the teachers and students of magic here in Mahora. All of them are mages? Negi asks in amazement. Wow, I didn't think there'd be this many here in Mahora. Setsuna stated. Wait a minute, Negi said, rounding up on his colleague Saruhiko. That would mean that you're also a mage. That's correct, Negi-kun, Saruhiko confirmed with a small smile. Sorry for not telling you earlier. I also apologize for not the trip to Kyoto because I was tasked by the headmaster to protect the students. Not that I'd be much help anyways. I've also heard so much about you, Negi-kun. A kindly-looking, bespectacled man who reminded Negi of someone said. I'm glad that I'm finally meeting you in person. I'm Professor Akashi. Akashi, Negi repeated. You're Yuna's father, aren't you? That's correct, Professor Akashi answered. Thank you for taking such good care of my daughter. And no thanks are necessary. Yuna is one of my students after all, and it's my responsibility to take care of all my students. Negi said. Well then, now that we're all acquainted, all that's left is to wait for one more person before we begin. The headmaster started to say but was interrupted by another voice. Sorry I'm late, Jason. I got lost in the road of life, the oddly familiar voice said before a figure lands behind Negi and Setsuna. Negi turns around and his eyes widens in shock at who he saw. It's you, Negi exclaimed. In front of the young mage stood the very man whom he was wondering about for the past month. The purrs on he knew as Naruto now looked human and no longer had his red-black trenchcoat and headband with metal plate. He now wore a partially unzipped orange-black tracksuit which prominently displayed the necklace with the green crystal around his neck with Mahora's logo and the words P.E. Department on the shoulder. He also wore what seemed to be wooden clogs and carried a shinai. It's you, Negi exclaimed, pointing at Naruto. Well now, if it ain't the little Gaki-sensei. Naruto said with a smirk. It's been a while, hasn't it? What are you doing here? Chamo asks fearfully. I see you remember Naruto-kun. May I introduce the newest member of Mahora's PE department, Uzumaki Naruto? The headmaster said. He's a teacher here, Negi asks. Gym instructor for the high school seniors. Naruto clarified with a shrug as he grins cheerily at Negi. I also teach Japanese from time to time. I've nothing else better to do anyways and I needed the money, so long story short, I took the job. But what about you, Gaki? How have you been? Excuse me, but the two of you may catch up once the meeting is over. The headmaster interrupted. Right. Business first then, Naruto said as Hi's expression suddenly turns dead serious. The change from what seemed to be an odd goofball to something like a highly disciplined and obedient soldier was so quick and sudden that Negi wondered if Naruto was somehow bipolar. Yes, we can talk later, Negi agreed in what he hoped to be an equally serious tone of voice. Once he was certain that he had everyone's attention, the headmaster spoke. No. Then. I gathered you all here because I'll be needing your assistance in a matter of great importance. But before the headmaster could continue, he was interrupted by Negi and Kotaro. It's nothing awful, is it? Negi asks in concern. Is it a strong enemy? Is it coming here? Kotaro asks eagerly. Nothing quite as serious as the school trip, I'm afraid. The headmaster said. Che, how boring, Kotaro commented. Nothing wrong with boring, pup. Boring's actually good once in a while, Naruto stated lazily, causing the canine Hanyu to glare at him. For some reason, the sight of the blonde stranger irked him to no end. Maybe for you, Namikaze-sensei. But not for someone who was born and bred for the battlefield. Kotaro shot back, but instead of being offended, the man called Naru to gives him a wide smile which vaguely reminds Kotaro of a grinning fox. Now this seems familiar, Naruto said nostalgically. I remember I felt the same way before but still got my ass kicked one too many times. You should always pick your battles, pup, because if you don't, you're liable to be the one who's left lying on his back, wondering what just hit him most of the time. But before Kotaro could retort, the headmaster clears his throat loudly. If I may continue. When he gets an embarrassed nod from both Naruto and Kotaro, he continues. As I was saying, I'll be needing your assistance in a matter of great importance. It's nothing like the school trip but equally serious if left unchecked. I assume you've all heard about the legend of the World Tree. Sure we have. It seems like that's a hot topic nowadays this close to the festival, Naruto said. Supposedly, if you made a wish under the World Tree on the last day of the festival, it'll come true. Actually, another leg, N says that you get to be with the one you love if you confessed to him or her on that day too. Negi mentioned. Naruto looks at the child mage. That's so. I guess the specifics gets kinda blurry over time. But in any case, I still don't see the problem. Isn't that still just an urban myth? Naruto sweat drops at the, "Who do you think we are?" look that the headmaster was giving him. Yar, I should have known. It's not quite an urban myth, is it? Indeed. The truth is wishes can be granted by the world tree, though it's only once every 22 years. The headmaster said. The headmaster then clasps both hands behind his back and continues. Perhaps I should explain for the benefit of the newer faculty members and students. The world tree which you see growing in the middle of the place. Aza is actually the Shinboku or sacred tree Banto, which hides a very powerful magic. Once every 22 years, the magic accumulates to such a point that it flows outwards from the tree and emanates from 6 points around Mahora. This plaza is one of those points. This magic is extremely susceptible to human emotions. Lust for power, wishes for wealth, or women's underwear won't affect it, but confessions of love are most likely to occur by 120%. Its power is so great that it's almost a curse. Changing weather pattern. The environment. Who knows why, but things that should happen next year is happening now. And that, my friends, is the reason for this sudden convocation. So what do you need our assistance for, headmaster? Setsuna asks. Excellent question, Kotaro-kun. What I need everyone to do on the last day of the festival in particular, is to prevent any and all attempts to put the World Tree legend to the test, especially if it relates to matters of the heart. The headmaster instructed. Pardon me for asking, headmaster. Negi cuts in. But what's so wrong about falling in love? I mean, don't you think that asking us to stop confessions is a little excessive? Actually, the headmaster has a point. Naruto spoke up. A relationship born of magic and not true is meaningless. I mean, would you like to fall in love against your will? Quite right, Naruto-kun. The headmaster seconded. Besides that, the permanent binding of affections through magic goes against the most strongly held beliefs of every magus. Wait a minute. What about that love potion I made? Does that mean I'm a criminal? Negi thought in panic. Relax, Aniki. What you made is only temporary, so it doesn't really count. Though you do realize that love potions are illegal, right? Chamo communicated telepathically. Is there something wrong, Negi-kun? The headmaster asks, noting the panicked expression on the youthful mage's face. And nope, nothing for you to be worried about. Chamo assured him hurriedly. A number of student organizations have actually conducted their own investigation of the World Tree, and some have come perilously close to uncovering the truth. A blonde female with a clipboard reported from nearby. And yet, even if you combine this with the articles that's been coming out in the Mahora Times, the number of those who believe the rumor is far less than expected. But irregardless of that, there'll still be no shortage in students who would want to put the legend to the test. Professor Akashi pointed out. In any case, word of this has spread around the campus, and as Professor Akashi had said, there'll be a lot of impressionable young students who'll want to test it out to see if it's true. The headmaster stated. As bad as I feel for the students, I must ask all of you to Geshe on the last day. Meanwhile, an unseen specter hovered nearby and couldn't believe what she just heard. I don't believe what I just heard. Sayo thought to herself. A young, red-headed girl with a broomstick on her back suddenly looks in Sayo's direction and spoke. Somebody is watching us. Simultaneously, a bearded man smoking a cigarette and the bee-looned guy with whiskers flicks something her way. Before Sayo could react, what seemed to be a hovering robot is impaled by a blade, then gets sliced by an invisible force. Sayo needed no further urgings and fled the scene. Back with the headmaster and company, Naruto looks at the bearded man, who reacted as quickly as he did to remove the threat. An unenchanted Ventus air spell. The blonde asks with a smile. Very good. You haven't been here for very long yet you're already familiar with our ways here. The bearded man answers, sounding genuinely impressed. I sensed no magic in it, so it must be mechanical in nature. But if our students are already capable of spying on us like this, then we shouldn't underestimate them. I'll find them. Another blonde female wearing a black dress stated. It shouldn't be too difficult since there is only a handful of students who is capable of such a feat. From the rooftop of a nearby building, a pair of cloaked figures were observing all that was happening. Ayah! They destroyed the observation droid. I thought the anti-mage stealth system would prevent it from being discovered. Now they're coming after us. One of the cloaked figures exclaimed. What will we do? If they catch us, they'll erase our memory. The second cloaked figure said. This prompts the first cloaked figure to step up to the ledge, activate your stealth cloak and stay low. Hakase. I'll draw them away. Meanwhile, the headmaster was giving out some last-minute instructions. Do not dismiss it as simple ardor. Our students stand to lose their very youth, so please exercise caution in your use of magic. I'll be counting on all of you, so please begin your patrols immediately. That is all. Yes, sir. All of a sudden, people appears in the seemingly abandoned area. Where did all these people come from? Negi asks. An area spell to cloak our presence for privacy and security. Naruto said as he walks over to join Naruto and his companions and smiles cheekily. Aren't you supposed to be more aware of that more than I am, since I'm still pretty new here? It seems like you've been studying since the last time we met. Negi stated, surprised at how much Naruto knew about magic in only a short month. I had a lot of catching up to do. I had to be at least familiar with this area if I'm gonna be working here. Naruto said. Yes, about that. You sigh. That the headmaster offered you a job as a teacher? Negi asks. Not just a job, Naruto clarifies. He also offered me a place to stay and access to old books and records to find out exactly where and when I am and how I got this way. And there's only one place I can get that. You're not talking about Library Island, are you? That place is a death trap. Setsuna exclaims. Jokin. From where I come from, Library Island is a walk in the park. Besides, I kinda like it there. It reminds me of home. Naruto said with a grin. Negi, who is this guy anyways? Kotaro asks a little irritably. And why does he smell like a fox? Remember the guy the first told you whom I met in Library Island? Negi asks. Kotaro nods at this, remembering that Negi mentioned something about meeting a Hanyu there. Well, this is the guy. Meet Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto, the container of Kyuubi no Kitsune. Naruto-san, this is Inagami Kotaro. Kyuubi, as in Kyuubi no Yuko. Kotaro exclaims as he studies the man in front of him. So that was the reason why this guy raised his hackles. He was a Hanyu of the Fox tribe, and both their tribes never truly got along. As if reading his thoughts, Naruto gives Kotaro a long-level look before grinning widely and offering his hand. Nice to meet ya. Let's all get along, shall we? The dog Hanyu looks at the proffered hand in surprise and after a moment's hesitation, takes it. Likewise, he would at least be civil to him if only for his friend Negi. Negi-kun, the headmaster calls out. I'm sure it won't be a problem, but please do try to avoid having your students confess to you as well. Dead silence. The only thing that can be heard was Chamo's snickering and a gulp from Setsuna. Negi himself could feel beads of sweat coming from his forehead. What's wrong? The headmaster asks before sweat dropping at Negi's nervous expression. You don't really think that? 10 minutes later. Biwahahahahaha. Naruto-san, please stop laughing. My situation is most assuredly not funny. Negi said, slightly ticked off at the blonde. The mage had explained what his plans was as they were walking in the streets and even showed the blonde teacher his schedule, but he ended up laughing out loud. Of course it is, Naruto countered as he pointed to Negi's appointment book in his hand. You just went ahead and committed yourself to spend time with each and every one of your students. I find that Amazon is hell. But I gotta say that I never thought you had it in you. We'll make a fox out of you yet, Gaki. Naruto said with a grin. Speak for yourself. Kotaro growls. Dude, there's nothing but girls in his schedule. You're losing my respect, Negi. And what's wrong with being with a girl? Setsuna asks dangerously, fingering her sword. Nothing at all. Kotaro said nervously at the look Setsuna was giving him. It's not what you guys think. I'm the girl's teacher and... Negi started to protest before something crashes through a fruit stand in front of them. But as they hurried over to investigate, they find one of Negi's students, Chao Lingshan, climbing out of the fruit stand's ruins. Chao-san, Negi exclaims, hurrying to assist his student. Negi-sensei, the young Chinese genius cries. Please help me, I'm being chased by some shady-looking characters. Naruto instinctively took stock of the situation and made a snap decision. Sakurazaki-san, Take her and head for the rooftops towards the girls' dorms. The rest of us will cover your escape," he instructed. But no sooner did they start running along the rooftops, a number of cloak D being in black mysteriously appears out of the shadows and gives chase. Are those shadow clones or summons? I don't feel anything except some faint energy which are animating them, kinda like how Shikamaru handles his shadows. If that's the case, Naruto thought before launching a hidden knife at one of the shadow beings which disappears when struck. No need to be gentle with these things. Take 'em down hard, Gakis. He calls out. All right. Kotaro cries gleefully as he launches himself at their opponents and attacks viciously while Negi casts a quick spell disguised as fireworks to wipe out the shadow beings. But no matter how many they fought and defeated, new ones seems to pop out from seemingly nowhere to cut them off. Negi and the others were forced to regroup in a back alley. Where the heck are they all coming from? Kotaro groused, peeking around the corner. There's no end to them. My guess is that there's someone with the ability to manipulate shadows who controls them. Naruto stated thoughtfully. If we get that person, these shadows will disappear too. But of course, that person will probably have backup. That's true, Negi Bozu. Chao pipes up. And if it wasn't for you and your friends, they would have caught me already. But why are they after you anyways, Chao-san? Negi asks with a frown. And why are you not freaked out by what you just witnessed? It's same reason why they want to catch me and wipe my memory clean. My knowledge of magic, Chao admitted, causing Negi and the others to blanch. You're aware of magic? Negi asks incredulously. Let's worry about that later. So what do we do now? Do we sit here and wait it out? Setsuna asks curtly. That'll take too long and they'll have time to ask for help. We have to take the Facided. There's 3 of them closing in on our location. One coming from the rooftops, another one sneaking in from the market behind this alley, and another one coming in the main road. Our best bet is to split up and confront them, Naruto said before adding. The problem is, they seem to be communicating telepathically for them to coordinate this assault so well. And as Negi pointed out, they might just call for more backup. Leave the telepathic interference to me, Chamo volunteered. You guys just concentrate on getting rid of the opposition. Alright then, here's the plan. While Jockin here guards the girl, I'll stake out the rooftops for our guest there. Negi, you'll have to watch out for the one coming from the main street while Kotaro handles the person sneaking in from the back. Does that sound good to you guys? Naruto asks. Negi was amazed at how quickly Naruto took control of the situation and formulated a workable plan in such a short amount of time. It was as if he had been doing this all his life. Which was probably true if he was to believe the blonde's life story. The child mage nods his assent, as did Kotaro and Setsuna. Satisfied that they understood the plan, Naruto nods too. Chamo, who starts muttering his incantation. A few moments later, they split up to find their respective targets, with Naruto leaping up to the roof. It didn't take long for a shadowy figure to appear. Naruto had to jump back to avoid a barrage of gunfire. He then propels himself forward with a kunai in each of his hand and blocks a blade with his kunai while the other grabbed the wrist with the gun. It was then he noticed that his opponent looked familiar. It's you, Naruto exclaimed. He recognized the dark-skinned bespectacled man whom he saw at the meeting in the World Tree Plaza. Scree. Amanda crash snaps them both out of their shock. I think an explanation is in order here, the dark-skinned man said. A few minutes later, what's the meaning of this? Negi asked the dark-skinned man whose name they learned was Gandolfini and was together with a pair of students named Mei and Takane. That's what we'd like to know. Why are you aiding problem student Chao Lingshan? Gandolfini asks. She's my student. Of course it's my obligation to help her, Negi said. And what's this you're saying about Chao-san being a problem student? She's one of the best students of our class. How can she be a problem student? Setsuna asks. Gandolfini sighs in relief and looks at Negi and Naruto. I'm glad our original assumption of rogue mages assisting her was proven wrong. I'm also assuming that the headmaster has not informed the two of you of her special case, so I must ask you to defer this to us. I'm afraid that reason is not good enough. You're gonna have to do better, Naruto said with his arms crossed. Very well then, Gandolfini said as he clears his throat. As you all know, we strive to keep our activities hidden from the general populace. But out of necessity, see how Lingshan was made aware in exchange for utilizing her extraordinary talents. But time and again, she has broken the rules and has even been known to aid Evangeline A.K. McDowell. But Evangeline's not that bad. Negi protested. Well, you've also got other students in your class with magical powers. Chicane pointed out. Shouldn't you be worried about them too? Gandolfini then looks at Chow. Now you've managed to send one of your devices to break through the field spell meant to ensure privacy and spy on our meeting, which is an illegal act. I believe this is the third time we've caught you, so I'm sure you know what that means. Quote, why yes sir, Chow said meekly. If that's the case, then come with us. A pair of shadow beings grab Chow on each side as Gandolfini and his companions prepare to leave when, wait, Negi calls out. Gandolfini looks back and sees Negi with a determined look in his face. I'm afraid I can't let you take Chow. She's my student and you have no authority over my class. You will defer her to me. At first, Gandolfini and his companions looks incredulously at Negi. But unexpectedly, the dark-skinned mage cracks a small smile. All right then, I'll defer this to you, Negi-sensei. Chow Lingshan is your responsibility now. Are you sure about this? You do know what will happen if her actions leads to the revelation of magic to the world, right? Chicane stated. We'll all be turned into ermines. The girl called May supplied. Please don't worry, I'll keep her in line. Negi answered, sounding more confident than he actually felt. As soon as Gandolfini and his companions left, Negi and the others turned towards Chow. This is a dangerous game you're playing, Jokin. If it weren't for the Gaki here, you would have really been in trouble. Naruto stated sternly. I know that and I appreciate your help. Chow said cheerfully. You guys really saved my life back there. But what exactly are your intentions, Chow-san? Why did you go through all that trouble to spy on the meeting? Negi asks. Chow's cheerful vestige drops a little before she recovers quickly. I'm afraid that will have to be a secret for now, she said. But before Negi could protest, she continues cryptically. But know that my intentions are pure and noble, and I would never intentionally do anything to harm anyone in this world. They say that the road to hell is paved with good intentions, Jokin. Naruto stated, crossing his arms across his chest. How do we know you won't take us down that path? You'll just have to trust me on this, Chow said with a bright smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. But for now, I offer my services to you as thanks for saving me. The science and technology of Chow Lingshan is at your command. Later that night, and that's how I got this from Chow-san, Negi said, showing the stopwatch-like object to Asuna and the others. So what does it do? Kanoka asks curiously as she studies the watch. Chow said she'll explain the effects at a later date. Negi stated, are you sure about this? Asuna asks in concern. Chow's inventions are always a little dodgy at best. I don't think she meant any harm, so yes. Negi answers. But before Asuna could reply, Ayaka calls out to them. Negi-sensei, the fireworks are about to begin. She said, don't worry, Asuna-san. I trust Chow to do the right thing, and so should you. She is, after all, your classmate. Negi said as both he and Asuna joins the rest of the class in watching the fireworks which signaled the start of the festival. On a rooftop further away, Chow along with Hawk, Ace and Chachimaru stood watching Negi and the others. I've been reviewing your records on Negi-sensei and you're right. He is such a kind and gentle person. Chow said, we could use him in our plans. Please do tell what exactly are your plans. Another voice spoke, and a moment later, a cloaked figure whose features were hidden in the shadows except for a pair of glowing red eyes steps out. Ao didn't seem surprised to see the individual. I take it you've decided to join us? Chow asks with a smile. What I've seen so far seems interesting. The shadowy figure said, tell me more. Ring. Asterisk. Naruto groans as he rouses from his sleep courtesy of the most infernal invention mankind has ever created. The alarm clock. He briefly contemplates just crushing the blasted Machin before going right back to sleep, but remembers that it was a workday and he had responsibilities to consider. That plus the fact that good alarm clocks were expensive as hell. He slowly gets up from bed and looks around blearily at place he has called home for the past month or so. As part of his deal with the headmaster, he was allowed to build himself a small but comfortable shack as well as Ivan permission to access the vast storehouse of information inside Library Iceland. In addition, he was also being paid for his services as a faculty member of the Mahora staff even though he had no clue on how to be a teacher. Luckily for him, the headmaster was understanding enough to give him a few weeks to prepare himself, and with liberal use was able to get himself up to snuff and certified in practically no time flat. In the same period of time he used to prepare himself for his academic duties, Naruto also did some investigation on what had happened to Konoha during his absence. At first, he attempted to summon a toad to get more information, but for some strange reason, they weren't responding. That's when he turned to the vast database of Library Island for assistance. Unfortunately for him, the only information he had found on his old home village was in an ancient tome which spoke of the destruction of the 5 great hidden villages more than 250 years ago during a great calamity which swept the entire world. This saddened Naruto. If the 5 great villages mentioned by the tome was the 5 great shinobi nations, then he would not have a home to go back to. But neither did he lose hope, because he knew that shinobis were survivors and not all records pertaining to a shinobi village were kept in one place or written down on scrolls and books. He'd bet his last ramen money that if he could track down the descendants, they'd have the information he needed stashed away. In old scrolls are memorized after the elder members of their clans passed it on to them. All he had to do was be patient. Apart from his investigation, Naruto took the opportunity to refamiliarize himself with his abilities and discovered a few distressing changes. One was of course his inability to summon the toads. This also saddened him because the toads have been a part of his life since he was a kid, and he knew he would miss having them around to help him out in times of need. Another thing he would miss was Kyuubi's presence. As far as he could tell, the 9-tailed Biju was no longer sealed inside him, and he could no longer count on its sage advice when he needed them. The final thing which upset Naruto was his inability to use natural energy. While he still retained the ability to sense people through their life energies, he could no longer draw upon it and go into sage mode, which was the toad's legacy to him. On the plus side, he seemed to have retained his incredible regenerative powers, the ability to use his jutsus as well as having his massive stores of chakra. In addition to that, he could also still feel Kyuubi's chakra coursing through his body, which meant that the Yuko's energies had fused with his, augmenting his powers. But this also resented him with some problems, because Kyuubi's energies running rampant on his system had effectively turned him into a Hanyu. And while he knew how to utilize his new demonic energies and abilities, controlling effectively them was another thing altogether. In the end, Naruto was forced to put a limiter on himself to seal off most of his demonic chakra in order to avoid any mishaps, and from his own estimation, ended up on roughly the same level from when he was a Haijunin and Anbu of Konohagakure. Right now though, all the chakra and jutsus in the universe won't help him if he was going to be late for work. After washing up and changing quickly into his work gear, Naruto greets good morning to the guardian dragon of Library Island, whom he eventually befriended, and briefly wonders if he could somehow utilize it as a summon creature before leaving for Mahora Academy. It didn't take him long to get to the school because he was so used to taking to the rooftops to save time. And along the way, he notices that he wasn't the only one who liked using the rooftops to travel. About 30 feet away, he could see one of Negi's students, a girl whose name he remembered as Nagase Kaide, also leaping from rooftop to rooftop. As if sensing someone watching her, Kaide turns her head and sees the new teacher watching her and smiles widely at him, which Naruto readily returns. She then gives him a cheeky salute before blurring away. Naruto whistles in appreciation at her adept use of Shunshin, wondering if Kaide's a ninja and was descended from one of the great shinobi villages. At least mid-Chunin level, he mutters to himself, falling back to his old habit of classifying anyone he meets by shinobi standards, be they ally or adversary. And considering her skills and who her sensei is, she might also be one of those in the know about all the magical stuff that's been happening here in school, assuming that she really is a shinobi. It might be worth my time looking her up one of these days to ask for some info. Putting that thought in the back burner for the meantime, Naruto arrives at the academy and proceeds directly to his first class of the day, which happens to be homeroom with a seniors class. As usual, there were a lot of chatterings and discussion going on as he entered. And while they weren't exactly a model class, Cammy knows they can't be as bad as the mod. Ouse that was Negi's class 2A, whom some students in his class has also encountered. Who the hell can deal with ex-vampire queens with a grudge, violent best friends who either had a thing for older N or one for young boys and hormonal-driven kids who thought nothing of stripping down to their undies in front of their teachers on a daily basis and still smile? You'd either have to be one hell of a masochist or the biggest goddamned pervert there is, like Ero Sennin. Negi sure is a stronger kid than Naruto gave him credit for. Alright class, settle down. Naruto calls out. The chattering continues as if nobody heard him, so Naruto loudly clears his throat and speaks again. Let's begin our class, everyone. Still no reaction from the class, and if anyone took the time to notice, there was a large tick mark on Naruto's smiling face. Naruto decides to resort to an old trick he learned from his old teacher Iruka. He takes a deep breath and then, "Shut the hell up and sit your asses down, you little maggots," Naruto bellowed, his head seemingly turning red and ballooning to 5 times its normal size. A collective thump can be heard as the entire class drops to their seats with fearful eyes at the demonic visage which screamed at them. Right then, Naruto said cheerfully as his head shrank back to its normal size. "Now that I have everyone's attention, I'd like to hear your ideas on what this class can do during the cultural festival, and no Eiko, you can't have Negi-sensei as our class mascot," Naruto told the senior, raising her hand before muttering quietly. Cammy knows he's got enough problems of his own. This is gonna be a long day. Ellipsis. Naruto-sensei. Naruto looks up at the voluptuous form of the headmaster's assistant, Shizuka, who had spoken to him. He had just finished part of his class load of the morning and had decided to take a small break in the faculty room to indulge in a cup of instant ramen. Quickly slurping up the noodles hanging from his mouth and wiping his mouth with a napkin, he stands up with a sheepish look on his face. "Sorry about that, Shizuka-sensei. I was just taking a little break and thought of getting a little snack in between classes." "It's all right, Naruto-sensei," Shizuka stated. "I've seen how hard you work, and teaching children who are about to take the next big step of their lives must be quite trying. They're good kids whenever they take their studies seriously. Teaching them isn't as bad as I initially thought, and it's an honor to have a hand in molding the minds of tomorrow's generation," Naruto said with a grin. Shizuka had to smile at the blonde's words but wasn't really surprised. If what the headmaster said about him was true, then Naruto was wise and mature beyond his years. His former life as a warrior had forced him to grow up quickly, so it must be a relief for him to be doing something productive rather than destructive. "Well said, Naruto-sensei. Thank you very much for the compliment," Naruto acknowledged, scratching the back of his head in embarrassment. "But you didn't come all this way to look for me just to see how I was doing, didn't you, Shizuka-sensei?" "Indeed not," Shizuka confirms with a smile. "As you know, many teachers take advisory roles in various school clubs. We were wondering if you'd be advisor of one yourself." Naruto ran a hand through his hair in contemplation. "Well, if I have to, I guess I could give it a shot. What do you have in mind?" "The headmaster and I think that this club might just be up your alley," Shizuka said, giving him a folder. Curious as to what she meant, Naruto opens the folder and scans the contents before he smiles at seeing who the members were. "The Mahora Walking Club Sounds interesting already." Ellipsis. A few hours later, Naruto found himself walking through a woody park where the walking club was said to frequent. The area kind of reminded him of the woods just outside the walls of Konoha where he and Hinata often took walks together. But that was a story for another time. Right now, he was told by Shizuka to meet the club members here. But so far, he has yet to see hide nor hair of them. Somehow, this situation seems familiar, Naruto said with a sigh before he seemingly steps into a rope trap which swings him upside down on a tree. "Got him," a young girl's voice cheers. A few moments later, a pair of pink-haired young GIRLS twins from the looks of it steps out of the bushes. "That was so easy, wasn't it, Fuka? He fell right for it," the girl with her hair on 2 pigtails said. "Anyo, are you sure we should have done that to our new advisor Fumika-nisan? I mean, we don't even know him yet," the twin with her hair in buns asks fearfully. "It'll be fine, Fuka," Besides, what can he do hanging up from the tree like that? Fuka said confidently. Who do you have hanging from the tree anyways? Naruto asks, suddenly appearing between the twins, causing them to yelp in surprise and look at their trap. Apparently, at they had hanging there was just a log. Narutaki Fuka and Narutaki Fumika, I assume. Instead of answering, Fumika points at Naruto. How do you do that? How do you escape from our ingenious trap? Naruto gives her a deadpan look. Not that it's any of your business, but I used Kawarimi no Jutsu, which I'm sure you know is a ninja technique. You don't seriously think I'd fall for such a simple trap like that, do you? Not that I'm really a ninja or anything, mind you. So you know ninja techniques, do you? Fumika said as her terrified twin hid behind her. Then you should be familiar with this. Fuka suddenly drops a smoke bomb which covers the immediate area in a thick smoke before calling out, Narutaki Ninpu, Bunshin no Jutsu. As the smoke clears, Naruto couldn't help but facepalm at the sight in front of him. The twins were now standing side by side, wearing pink shinobi uniforms of all things and their hands forming the ram's seal. Bunshin no Jutsu complete. Fuka managed to say, the battle is now 2 against 1 sensei. What are you gonna do now? Fumika asks with renewed confidence in her voice. Wow. I don't even know what to say, Naruto said, scratching his head. As he recalled that Konohamaru and his friends had done the exact same thing in one of their earlier days. Smiling fondly at the memory, Naruto makes a decision. Fine then, you girls want to play. Let's play, Naruto said with a foxy smile. Ready or not, here I come. Ellipsis. About 100 meters away, Kaide sat on a branch watching Naruto-sensei play with the twins, who seemed to be enjoying themselves immensely. So he's really quite skilled, as rumors say. That he is, Kaide said before suddenly looking down at another Naruto leaning against the trunk of the same tree she was sitting on as he watched the proceedings. But I still say you're holding back quite a bit, aren't you, Naruto-sensei? Of course I am, Naruto said with a scoff. But then again, so are you. I mean, what shinobi were? His salt would show whatever it is he's capable of out in the open. Not that I'm saying that you're a shinobi or anything, mind you. Of course not. Such a notion would be ridiculous, would it not? Kaide agrees with her trademark closed-eyed smile and shares a few moments of silence before she asks again. But supposing you were really a shinobi, how strong would you say you are? Naruto NCES up at Kaide before he turns his attention back to the Narutaki twins and the other Naruto. Theoretically, at least cage level, he answers, not really finding anything wrong with her question. It didn't really give her any specific data on him. But you didn't hear that from me. As for you, I'd say you're about mid Chunin ranked. You assess correctly. That you certainly have. My humble skills, were I a shinobi, have only earned me the rank of Chunin. Kaide acknowledged calmly, though inside, she could feel her excitement grow. She could sense no falsehood in his words, only the conviction of a true shinobi who was confident of his abilities. And the way he was able to correctly assess her skill level only reinforced her belief. Before her probably stood an honest-to-good cage-ranked shinobi, which hasn't been seen for at least in the last 100 years in the history of the shinobi. The very reason why she traveled to the outside world was because she had reached the absolute limit of her training back in her home village and wanted to seek out more challenges. Now the opportunity to improve herself was basically being presented to her in a silver platter. Only had to figure out how to take advantage of it without being too obvious about it. Half an hour later, and after sending the Narutaki twins home, Kaide was no closer to finding a solution as Naruto walked her back to the dorms. So you were assigned to be our advisor in the walking club? Kaide asks. Yeah, Shizuka-sensei thought it'd be a good idea if I did, and I have to say that it hasn't been boring. Naruto said, his arms behind his head. Naruto then suddenly stops and looks at Kaide. You know what? Let's stop beating around the bush here, cause I'm not really fond of it unless absolutely necessary. Is there something you'd like to ask me? Kaide suddenly drops down to one knee and bows to Naruto. Please, Naruto-sensei, teach me everything you know as a shinobi. I promise to work hard and maintain the strictest of confidence between us. That I will. Naruto merely looks at Kaide for a moment before shaking his head and turning away. I'm sorry but I can't, in good conscience, teach you my skills, Kaide. The world I came from is full of death, destruction and despair, and you are far too young to immerse yourself in that world. Kaide bows her head in defeat, thinking that she has failed in convincing the blonde to take her on as an apprentice. But Naruto wasn't through yet. But what I can teach you are the things that make us shinobis so feared as shadow warriors. Naruto continued as he turns around and points at Kaide. And the first thing you should learn is that it's not the powerful weapons we may wield or the fancy moves and techniques we may use or even any SPECIAL powers we may have which distinguishes us from the rest. It's our ability to get in anywhere unobstructed, accomplish our mission while remaining undetected and disappear quickly without leaving any trace. Naruto then turns around. That's why we shinobis are called shadow warriors. We do our best work in the background. Ours is not the most glamorous profession, but it certainly is one of the most essential. You already have the makings of a fine shinobi, Kaide, and I have no doubt that you will go far if you remember everything I've told you. Yes, Naruto-sensei, Kaide said in an uncharacteristically solemn voice. Thank you for the opportunity, and I swear I won't let you down. That I won't. There'll be none of that kind of talk in front of me, Kaide. Naruto gently admonished. I don't like anybody who I take on as a student putting pressure on themselves trying to meet my supposed expectations. Just always do whatever it is you think is right to the best of your ability and we'll call it even. Naruto then pauses for a few moments before continuing. Though if it's not too much trouble, may I ask you a few questions? Kaide looks up. Of course. I'll answer your questions to the best of my ability. That I will. Naruto closes his eyes before. Tell me, have you ever heard of the elemental countries or the 5 great shinobi nations? The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.